Alright, hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We have a stamp here from 100 Proof Press. I'm going to be putting this figure into a composition today using Stampscape stamps as the background setting, and we'll try to create a dramatic visual for you here today. Let's see, I don't have a real definitive composition in mind, but I kind of have an idea. And I don't know exactly how this is going to come together until I do it. I don't rehearse any scenes before I do these videos, so you're just seeing me working on the fly. With some scenes, I mean, if I'm going to use 3 stamps on a photo stamping assignment, I'll have a pretty good idea of what things are going to look like, but whenever I'm designing with several stamps in a composition that I've never done before, things always come up, and I always leave room for variation based on what is developing at any given time. So, I don't know, sometimes even the color schemes change. Alright, well, we're using Seaside Cove, which is a really large stamp, as you can see. It's over 10 inches long. There's a smaller version of it, but I'm working on a full-size 8.5 by 11. I really love working on that size. Of course, it takes a while to do a scene. I'm usually working on quarter page, just like anyone else. Alright, now, with large stamps like this, with a lot of surface area, you want to have a pretty decent amount of blotter paper underneath. People sometimes use newspapers, magazines, things like that. I just use a bunch of cheap copy paper, a stack of it. And that helps to the bottom of the page contour to the surface of the stamp a little bit more, but you want to use this plenty of pressure in every given area. Left, right, center, top, and bottom. And I would do it a couple times, okay? And I'm standing up to do this as well. Alright, so we have that right there. We have the top and bottom. We're going to have this figure kind of floating up in the air. Oh, by the way, the theme of this piece is called New Beginnings. It's the monthly challenge by the Stampscapes Facebook group. It's not company run or something like that. It's just a peer group of some really fantastic stampers, both beginning and advanced. So we have and everything in between. But you'd be surprised at how the beginners, often become advanced very quickly with the feedback and the critique, just general positive feedback from all the members involved, and as well as some great pointers and tips for everyone new to it, and I chime in as well. Alright, this is Boulders with Lichen here. I'm just kind of giving this a bank of rocks here in the foreground to place some other things on. I'm just using black ink right now for all of this. We could go with some additional colors, but we have a long way to go, so I'm just going to keep things, really simple. Speaking of simple, you notice that I didn't do any masking. With most Stampscape stamps, you won't need to mask. It's not something that is really enjoyed by me to do, as masking. I tend to see it as a little bit of tedium. We will have to mask a little bit, but that's, something that, I'd rather not have to do whenever possible. Okay, so we have our foreground here. Well, this is supposed to be distance right here, but we have a lot of range of depth within this space right here. I'm going to have this figure kind of coming up from the sea like this, or hovering above the sea. I tend to look at this ocean as, vibrant and living and whatnot, and I'm thinking about a bank of clouds around this little sun. It could be a moon too. I don't know. I might go moon on this one. I'm not sure. Actually, that might make good. I might have her going like this, and I'll put the moon up here. Okay. and then I'll have a bank of clouds around it like this. And I was doing this thing with this corona around it, not the coronavirus, but like a a ring, and maybe do something like that, like a moon ring. Okay, so something like this. All right, well, already one decision made as far as the time of day this is going to be. So let's do this moon in this is called the hot sun, but if you'd stamp it in blue, cool tones, they tend to look like a moon. All right, let's check on placement. All right, so if I have her like this, I put the moon right there. All right, let's go like this. I have to do kind of rule of thirds, and I might be kind of doing that too. This is roughly like a third of a page. Well, not quite, but kind of roughly around in that area. Or this is kind of, let me see. It's not quite rule of thirds, but I go kind of off center. But it seems like when I use stamps from other companies, when I'm kind of featuring them, I tend to go with this kind of pyramidal type of symmetrical format. I don't know why. It just seems to lend itself to that. Maybe I'll have to kind of play around with that a little bit and adjust and, not do that once in a while, just for the sake of it if I want to. And if I want to, it's just for the sake of kind of just doing something different, or doing something different so I can see a different result once in a while. But I do like this kind of dramatic kind of structuring of this very symmetrical type of build. But I often do kind of a pyramid thing like this. I figure it gives the composition a lot of balance and stability. The pyramid structures, it's one of the most stable structures. So when you look at it visually, it has that same type of effect. Okay, so I have her kind of floating up like that. Look at that. So I'm creating this visual dialogue between this element and this element right here. Okay? All right. Let's take a look. And let's add some clouds around this figure. All right, this is going to be a lot of impressions here, so bear with me on this one. This is one where I should really time lapse it. Maybe I'll shut up here and time lapse it. Okay, so after I ink up this cloud stamp right here, the clouds facing in this direction are being top lit, okay? So, with this being my source of light right here, when I stamp the clouds out here, they'll be side lit. So, on any surface that's facing that light, I will wipe off that part of the cloud each time I ink it up before I make my impression, okay? All right, so that's what I'll do around this entire perimeter, okay? Alright, now that I'm kind of away from my light source, what I'll do is, I don't need to wipe this off every time because it'll blend in with that surrounding imagery. Okay, the first layer of imagery, I should say. Alright, so every time we're overlapping and changing the angle slightly. Okay, now this is where we do have to do a little masking, but right on that ocean. Have a little bit of that ocean showing, though. Just so you don't get this big space in between. Alright, now this is going to be going into this figure, so I'm going to wipe it off really good. Like so, okay. So yes, I mean, I'm kind of going over her feet, but if I get a little bit of that really light blue in her feet, you know, no big deal. But that's better than having to kind of cut a mask off. And to avoid the feet completely, like I'll put on some gel pen or something like that and color those feet in later, so I'm not worried about having a little bit of blue in there. And that's what makes this process a lot less tedious than what you might think. In fact, I don't want any tedium, you know, like fussy types of things. If we don't have to, okay? Sometimes we need to in certain situations, but if I can avoid it, okay, now see, I'm going to avoid her too by just doing this quick and easy mask like that. And you see I have some of it showing there. And then we'll just come right over this. So, okay, and then we have that. Doesn't go right up next to her, you know, in some areas, but close enough, right? And you get a pretty dramatic sky like that. All right, so that cloud is it's a pretty good way to fill up a lot of space sometimes. And I mean, you know, this is a big scene here, so relatively speaking. But, I mean, this composition didn't take too long. Now, we're going to add in some more things in here, like I was thinking about these leaves in here, you know, kind of this new beginning type of notion. And we'll wait till the end to do that, though. Okay, so here's my general lighting scheme in this piece. All right, this is our light source, and then this light is going to be reflected off some of these clouds. Well, where do you color the clouds, okay? You see these darker areas of the clouds like that? What I'll do is I'll reiterate some of that shading with some additional tone in there, but I'll try to leave the lighter areas just as is, okay? But we do want that to stand out more, so I'm going to take this perimeter here and make it a little bit darker. Light on the water, right? Darker in the shadows. I'll try to make those shadows a little bit darker. This one, it's not quite, you know, there's not big areas of darkness like that, but there are some little ones. So I'm just trying to make that moon kind of reflect off the water in here. So all it means is I'll make this area like here darker and transition it. We don't want to just go dark and then, you know, just blocky area in here. We want it to go transition in here, okay? And taper, dark to light. So every time I do it, I'll go dark to light, and we'll apply the tone accordingly. All right, so I'll show you what that means. This is the towel that I was just kind of wiping off my cloud with. Why don't we just use this one again? All right, now I have a lot of tone to add in here. I think I'll use some... All right, this is my Adirondack lights. I would use that, but I know a lot of you don't have that because Adirondacks are just kind of, well, they're completely discontinued by rangers. So, let's see. I do this for you. Here's a Memento Summer Sky. And, yeah, let me grab some blue tones. Like, for example, Broken Glass. A lot of you might have that, right? tumbled glass, not broken glass, tumbled glass. Distress ink, okay? Just put it in some, you know, plastic, or if you have a little palette or something like that, you can use that. If you have the pad of this, you can use that too. You don't have to use the re-inker fluid, but if you have re-inker fluid like that, and you put a little drop of it out, couple drops, this process is so much faster because you just have more ink to work with, okay? Get it on your applicator. I'm just using a paper towel. You can use a stylus tool if you have it. I'm just going to use something that I know everyone would have. Not everyone has that, you know, and like I said, the summer sky would be a good one, the memento. Okay, so let's watch this right here. Tapering, right? This is what you want. Okay? Kind of this swiping thing like that. Don't go like this and then up, otherwise you're going to have this big, you know, solid line in here. But you're just going like this. You're just lightly, gently wiping this in, okay? And watch how fast, potentially, you can get this tone laid down, okay? See, I'm kind of taking it from the outside in like that, and I'm using this kind of wiping motion like that. See, that's like this, right? Not like this and then up, right? Like you're sweeping things out the door or something like that. All right, now what you do is you come in from the other side like this. See how I'm changing the angle? I'm not going like this. Here. This is an awkward motion of my hand. If I flip it like this is a very natural motion of my hand. Ergonomic, right? Now this is getting a little bit dry because it absorbed into my, you know, paper towel. You know, paper towels aren't designed to where, you know, you soak up and then it just keeps bleeding out of that, right? So you'll have to use a little bit more. You know, you'll start to get a little bit more super saturated though the more you apply in here. All right, now see, here's the thing. I can kind of avoid some of these little waves here a little bit, you know, with my the way that I use this, the amount of surface area that I use off of it. Let's go for some more. Oops. Let me get some of that right there. Okay. Alright, this gets better the more you use it too. Okay. Because it gets a little bit more saturated. I'm getting a little bit of the top of my waves, a little bit more than I wanted to, but that's okay because we can bring in some white paint later and kind of, what I was saying, I got some of those waves a little bit too dark, the crest of the wave, the white caps or whatever. All right, putting this on some of these rocks. Blue rocks, well, yeah, a little bit of that blue on there would help. You know, plus at nighttime, you know, under the moonlight, you don't see all those different versions of color. Okay. All right, now, see how this is kind of addressed down here? Now it's lighting, right? It's a real soft lighting. It's darker over here and lighter over here because I wipe it like that. I don't go into that area and, you know, fill in that whole thing. Difference between just coloring and coloring lighting is that you just don't color everything out. So a lot of people would see this and early on they're thinking logically. They're thinking water, blue, and they fill this whole thing in, okay? But just don't fill in everything, you know? And then the areas that you don't fill in represent light because it is lighter to begin with. Sometimes when you get to the end result, people are used to doing kind of like a coloring book style of coloring on different types of imagery. That looks really great on outline style images when you just color everything in, okay? But if you want to make things look a little bit rounder, then what you do is you vary the tones, just like my hand here. You know, skin tones are generally the same, but see, this is darker on this side, lighter on the top because it's being top lit, right? Turn around like that. Well, there's blood in my hand from making a fist there, but you can see the ridges and everything like that are darker and lighter in certain areas. So if I color this in, you know, you have like a flesh-colored thing and you just color it in, that hand would look flat. So you just leave various areas, okay? How does it apply to these clouds right now? Okay, remember what I was saying? You can go in here and just kind of darken up some of the clouds in the darker areas reiterated a little bit. I've already given you, clues on areas that you can color on your stamps by having them just darker to begin with. I do various values, a whole range of values usually in my stamps. Even when the stamp is looking silhouette, I usually put some area within that stamp. I give it a little bit of tone so that it looks more three-dimensional. Otherwise things flatten out and look real two-dimensional and flat and kind of more like a puppet type of, shadow puppet type of thing. Which I love shadow puppets, but if you want variation, then you have to have the tone in there. And, it just gives you a lot more variety than a solid shape. Solid shapes flatten out. The good thing about kind of a tonal shape is you can flatten it out by just coloring it all in. But a solid shape, you can kind of make it a little bit more three-dimensional, but it's put on all on you by having to use different values within that stamp. So you can color something with a rainbow pen, a solid shape can stamp out more three-dimensionally. But it just takes it's one extra step. Okay, so see where those kind of highlights are starting to come out now? Well, not highlights, but there's lighter areas in here because I've left it light. And I've largely taken the perimeter and I've made it quite a bit darker. Let's add a little bit more. This will be the last, tumbled glass that I use on here. Look at that splash right there of that ink. And just take that, sop it up, and use it. Okay? The figure will be addressed, but we'll do all that figure in with alcohol pens. She is just too detailed for coloring with something like this. Anyways, you see this, how this little rag, basically looks, when you're toning in and coloring something? It works pretty good. And we've only used one color so far, so you can imagine how this will come together using multiple tones, okay? But do you see the lighting kind of happening in here? It's already apparent, and we've only used one color so far, so you can achieve quite a bit of your lighting scheme just with one color. You establish it with the lightest one. Or, I don't know, whatever first color you're applying. Okay, let's see. Let's just go with another one of those distress inks. Those are very popular, aren't they? Let's go with Broken China. I think the Broken China is real close to the light blue that I stamped those clouds in. Okay, now let's see. Okay, when you move up into a darker tone, kind of apply it in the perimeter a little bit and see what effect it's, contributing. What amount of value it's contributing, from light to dark. I haven't forgot about that corona, so I want to make this area in here a little bit darker so that when I do this white corona around this moon, it'll show up. If it's too light, it won't show up at all, because it'll be white on really light. Okay, let's go back to this mask here. Sometimes I like to create a stronger separation between land and sky, in terms of the horizon line at least. So, easy mask again, right? You just mask right there. Straight line this time. Still kind of taper this though, okay? Okay. darken in some of these rocks here. Now, there was a lot of the tumbled glass within this already, so adding this broken china down here and using the same paper towel was creating some sort of mixture of the two. So the more I use this, though, with that broken china, it'll become more just straight broken china here, okay? Kind of feel streaks across that water, kind of keeping with the vertical, the horizontal kind of striations of the surface. Okay. I bought so many blues there when I bought these re-inkers. I didn't even buy the pads for these because I didn't feel I was going to need the pad to stamp out imagery with those colors. I was just using it for the inks to color. So why not just get the re-inkers and get more re-inkers than to buy the pad and re-inker. Especially when I didn't need the pad part, so just buying it for the colors, the inks, to do this toning here. Okay. Okay, there's a big slathering of ink that I'm applying right now. I don't know if you can tell. Okay, now when you move up into your darker tones, just kind of stay a little more perimeter oriented, but still try to go for that, that transitioning kind of streak. What it looks like, again, is this, okay? Most people look like this, and then they have it just end abruptly. So you have light and like super dark like that, but you want it goes like that. Okay, so every time you apply it, kind of that sweeping motion, okay? And this is where the angle is important, because this is a natural motion of your hand. My natural motion isn't this and like that, it's this, right? You can also go for the short streak like that. See, it's nice and tapered. Okay, coming along. It's getting a little bit more night-oriented the darker you take it, right? Okay, let's see. Summer Sky. No, I didn't use that one. I used Mermaid Lagoon. Okay. I might move into my... I'm going to move into my Marvy colors, okay? I don't have like a transitional blue tone after that color in re-inker format. Okay, so I'm just going to use my Marvy blue. It's a darker blue. Darker blue than the one I just used. It might be time for a new paper towel. This is really getting kind of shredded here. I don't know. I'll take it. Let me see it. Try to take it as far as I can, though. I usually don't do this type of, you know, application format, but since this is kind of this round thing, and I'm thinking about giving this scene a little bit of movement, you know, I don't mind getting kind of some streaks in this circular fashion, because it kind of reiterates what will be going on thematically, visually in the sky. Okay, a little bit darker on the edges here. Okay. Creating a nice strong vignette. The darker you take it out here, the lighter it will seem in there. I might give that some color too, but I'm not going to do it at this point in time. We'll probably give it a warm tinge. Alright, let's go down here. That thing doesn't want to come off. There we go. Piece of paper towel. Alright. Horizon. I'm not left-handed, but let's give this a try here. For the video's sake. Not too bad, not too awkward. This is kind of a navy blue. When you apply it this way, you're not applying like a full saturation as if you're working with the same color like that, like a pen or something like that, because you're doing this sponging motion so that there's less of an application with each stroke. But that's good because it gives you a lot more control when you're not working with a, absolute super wet, slathered, application process. All right. There we go. Just a little bit of a stronger horizon, right? Look at that lighting coming off the water. So I don't have this blue in that form right here, right? It kind of tapers like this from dark to light. That's why I was working from this way like that. Okay, like that. I think I have two of the same blues here. Yeah, I think I do. Prussian blue, very dark, okay? Almost seems like a different kind of chemistry, too. It penetrates it. It transfers, transfers and penetrates to the surface of the page faster than with other inks. Maybe it's thinner, I don't know. The viscosity seems different, so if you use Prussian blue, great blue, but be a little bit careful about your application. You don't want to get all like into that area. It's kind of a little bit more of a perimeter-oriented type of color at least in this process and look. Okay, masking. Left hand. Ah! See, my hand kind of slipped and it went down like that because I'm not used to doing this here. I need to go like this. And see how dark it is. It's alright though. It's almost like using the left brain. Left hand. I'm almost using the other side of my brain to apply here. All right, that got a little bit darker than I wanted, but that's all right. All right, see how this is kind of coming along? Do you see the difference each step of the way? It's not a huge step from each one color to the next, if possible, okay? Maybe you don't have, you know, some intermediate blues in there, so you have to go from something light to something a lot darker. Just kind of take your process a little bit slower and apply more of those lighter tones so that you get a bigger slathering of it. And if you just have to make a big jump in, you know, from one tone to the next, really light blue, super dark blue, maybe put a little bit of water on this to dilute that darker version of it. Then you apply it, then just work increasingly more into a direct application of that color. So dilute it to begin with, apply, then just, you know, start using it straight, okay? Okay. All right, let's go. Okay, and I'm going to change my paper towel because I'm going to go with this blue right here. It's Caribbean blue. It's kind of a greenish blue, a little bit of a warmer blue. And it's a really great color. It adds a little bit of temperature to it and makes a lot of my blue colored schemes a little bit more inviting and welcoming. You know, when you see kind of a warm blue, it's like, you know, really inviting. You want to go there. All right. You want to go there and swim in that water whenever, I don't know, at least that is for me. Whenever I see, you know, warm blue waters, you know, and there's like a kayak or something in the Gulf of Mexico or something like that, or, you know something in the tropics or whatnot, Caribbean maybe, you know, it really makes you want to be there. So for me, I'm making a little bit of a kind of a mental vacation right to that tone of water. See how different it looks? There it is in the water, and different up here. Okay, maybe I'll use a little bit of it here. You can use a lot, doesn't matter. It kind of makes it a little bit more inviting when you add kind of introduce temperature, like a warmth to something. When you add warmth to it, you're adding this kinesthetic type of visual, okay? And we have certain connotations with warmth, you know, especially amongst cool, okay? And that's, you know, people gravitate towards warm things. Unless you're in super hot weather, desert, or I don't know, wherever, and you want coolness, but just in general. Okay, so anyways, you see that warmth in there? Look at that glow, huh? When you add analogous colors next to each other, like on the color wheel, blue and green, green and yellow, whatever. When you place those next to each other, or on top of each other, in art, and this is when it's the language of color, when you place analogous colors next to each other, I'm physically layering analogous colors over one another here, but what it does is it creates a color glow. It's one of those little things when you do colors opposite of the color wheel next to each other, not overlapping, but next to each other, it creates a color vibration. I really like color glows, though, when it comes to doing scenes and using color. Personally, I like a lot of grayscale scenes, too, but when I'm using values in color, it's often about kind of temperatures and variations in temperature, things that are kinesthetic, in addition to visual. They're kind of visual kinesthetics. It's temperature, it's texture. All right, that is that. I think we're ready for some black ink, though. Okay, let's go back to that black pad, same black that I used to stamp out my imagery. I might use my stylus tools, okay, at this point in time. I don't know. We'll see. If I can do it without the stylus tool or sponges, I will. Which I can, just one would be a lot more convenient. Okay, so this is black. Alright, now then just kind of keep this a little bit more perimeter oriented, okay? Put a lot on the edge, and then I'll just kind of streak a little bit of that in. You can put this down here on some of these rocks. You can really animate your rocks. Oh yeah, I'm going to put some other plants in front of it, so maybe I won't go too dark on the rocks. Well, actually that plant is, the leaves are fairly bold, so they can take a pretty dark background like this. So, I don't know, maybe I don't need to worry about it. Alright, now this is not, I didn't want to go left-handed again over here on this side. Not with the black. I'll just keep this, comfortable. So what I'm doing right here is I'm squishing some of this black ink out, and I'm just doing a little bit of a flick like that, just to kind of taper it in, okay? Kind of anchoring these rocks down here a little bit. You see what that black did on those? Don't they seem to have a little bit more presence and visual weight by making them more opaque? Giving them opacity. If you have them too light, like the same colors as the background, sometimes it can look a little bit, it's kind of see-through. They're thin. Okay. Let's create a strong horizon line right here. Make it the perimeter darker. You'll make your interior, where it looks light, it'll look even lighter by contrast. Alright, see that right there? Look how dramatic that is. Right. Alright, let's bring a little bit more drama to these clouds. You can't really see the clouds out here anymore, right? Here's the beauty of that cloud stamp, okay? I'm going to take this and I'm going to ink it up again, but I'll do it in black this time. Same thing applies. The area that's facing the light, what I'll do is I'll wipe that off. Okay, pretty good, half-inch, quarter-inch. Take a lot off the side so it transitions from wet to dry up here, and it goes from dark to light. And the lighter area is facing the light. Okay, so let's put this in here like so. And I'm going to stamp this cloud out in the darker areas where, you know, the shape and the texture of the cloud doesn't show up very much anymore. Okay, oops. Junk call coming through. I need to turn off that ringer. Don't you hate spam calls these days? We need to start some legislation for the phone companies to put filters on these junk phishing callers. Scam calls. So 98% of those are calls that we get are kind of spam or kind of a scam calls. Hate it. All right, you see what that's doing right there? It's kind of creating this stronger transitioning presence of those clouds. And then we're going to go in and we're going to tone in and blend those clouds and the ones that we're doing right now. Otherwise it looks a little bit busy. Here comes our mask again. That mask is going a long ways, isn't it? Okay. Oops, I almost stamped that cloud facing the wrong way. A lot of people are using unmatted versions these days. Just always kind of remember to take a look at it, you know. You can kind of see it where those billows are kind of facing up, you know, like that. Or what you can do is on your unmatted piece of rubber, you just, I don't know, make an arrow or something like that, you know, with which way to aim it. Okay, you see that right there. Okay, see that right now? Doesn't it look a little bit more funneled and deep within this space by having something darker and lighter like that? All right, but let's go and blend this in now. Okay, let's just use the same paper towel here. There's plenty of black on it actually right now from having wiped off the cloud. We'll just use that same ink. Okay, kind of blend it in like that now. See that? I mean, that looks okay over here, but that looks better, doesn't it? I didn't take it very dark in here, so I'm not sure if that corona thing is going to happen. I don't know if we'll be able to see it. I'd have to make it really prominent, or it would just be very, very subtle. It's really fun to add in there, though, and it makes for a strong visual, so I'm going to try it, though, nevertheless. Okay. So I'm always kind of adjusting and improvising as I go along. All right. I think that looks pretty good for the blue to black transitioning in here. I don't think I need any more. Sometimes I make some kind of final adjustments on, a certain color scheme that I'm working within a scene, and yeah, that's good enough. All right. All right, let's go for some other tones in here. Let's bring a little bit of beige into this area down here. You wouldn't see that color with, the moonlight shining, but just to go for a temperature change. This is some antique linen, okay, Distress ink. Let's see if you can see what develops down in this space. Okay, see that right there? Put some on my rocks as well. Okay. And it's just a little bit of warmth. Can you tell that temperature change right down there? Okay. You can put some of that temperature up here in the sky as well. I picked up some of that black right there. I just smudged it right there. Oh well. Okay, let's try to get some of that warmth up there. I just did an ugly smudge of color. Let's bring a little bit of temperature into that moon. This moon's going to be covered with a lot of white pigmenting, so I'm not really worried about kind of an uneven, unexpected little mishap there. It's a little bit ugly right there. But this moon is going to be glowing anyway, so it doesn't matter. There's a lot of things that happen in the process of doing these scenes that at any given point, there might be some kind of undesirable type of application that happens. You get a little some color somewhere. But the thing is not to focus on that, just remember it, and to just eradicate it later on. And that's where a lot of people think, oh my god, this is so hard. But, when you add the finishing touches on it, it's going to be covering up a lot of things anyway. Sometimes I have like little space in between those figures, when I was masking. Doesn't matter, the little thing that, I swiped in water, I mean, it isn't what I wanted, but, it's not something that's going to destroy kind of the end result. You kind of have to let things develop and just keep working with them and know that, trust your process. It's not the end of the world, it's like if you're going through school or something like that and you didn't get a good grade on a quiz or something like that. It's not like, okay, I give up, I'm quitting the class. You stay with it and you just, you try to compensate for it later on. And that's like the journey of a scene, it happens all the time, If you see it as kind of a process, more than, I don't know, maybe more than just the sum total of a bunch of unrelated steps or something like that. It's all kind of part of the journey, so those little things that happen along the way, I wouldn't look at it as like the end of the world or the end of the scene. You just kind of, develop it. Okay, now let's see. What color should we make her? We can kind of incorporate her in a little bit, some blue tones and whatnot, but I'm thinking maybe something a little bit different. I'm not sure what, though. Greens or something like that, or I'm worried about going with a completely different temperature, like all warm. Because I think she would kind of stand out too much. I want her to kind of I want her to stand out, but I want her to also kind of harmonize with the rest of the piece. We'll say that she's wearing white, okay? But white isn't just all white, okay? Like this white pad right here, you know, here's the same colored plastic on the top as there is on the side, but when you go like this is a different color of white than this right here, right? And there's, you know, a lot of similar lighting right here. See that right there? There's lighter right there and darker right there. So anytime anyone's doing something that represents white, a lot of times they just leave it. But that looks a little bit, it doesn't look full to me, you know, so anything with this piece of paper right here, even though my desk is really lit, you know, see where my shadows are. It's a really good opportunity for some shading. Okay, so that being said, where do you do this? Okay, just like on my designs, I love these master engraver drawings because they rendered shadows and everything like that so effectively. So I'm just going in with a really light shade of blue right here, and I'm coloring in those shaded areas, okay, where the artist has drawn in shadows. So I'm just reiterating that. This is an alcohol pen, by the way. Okay. Same thing down here in the water now. See these areas underneath my waves? I can go in here and just color in this. Can't even see it right here because the colors underneath are already kind of darker than this one. But it's good to start off with some lighter tones like this, just to kind of get a feel of it. Alright, that was a aquamarine. Let's try this pastel blue. So I just kind of work in various values of blue these days with so many different colors out there and alcohol markers and different brands. You can get a pretty good selection of them. You can get some kind of nicer ones than I have. These are 50 cents each right here. Or if you just want to get some, you know, I don't know, brand names kind of popular out there these days, and I get it. But what you can do is you can get some, and I would highly recommend supplementing with an 88 pack for $40 of like these, because you might have some colors that you might not use too often, but you'll have them if you want them. Okay, and that's what I have. I have both Marvy, La Plume, and the Shuttle Art. I'm not advocating for a certain brand. I'm just saying in general, there's these multi-packs of various brands out there. Tons of different brands out there that are really inexpensive, and they're pretty good. I've been using alcohol pens now for, I think, 30 years. Started off with Studio 2. And as far as I know, they were the only alcohol markers out there at the time. They were kind of marketed as an alternative to the ad markers, chart pack, these real kind of strong xylene-based, you know, markers. They really smelled, but a lot of those types of markers were used for comps for designers, you know, like graphic designers, industrial designers. I think they were probably all used in the Pantone color scheme, you know, so you can have exact colors for reproduction purposes. But I don't know, if you worked with them and kind of indoors, they really smelled up the place. Anyways, I'm going into these areas down here in the waves that just really aren't, it's just not conducive to get, in a tight little area, with a, wadded up paper towel or something like that, or even just a sponge applicator. This is where you can get underneath things here and there. Spot coloring, I call it. Could be spot shading as well. All right, let's go into the figure again. If I was just working off screen, I apologize. Okay, see this right here? It's really dark blue and it doesn't look good like that. Okay, but the beauty of these alcohol pens is you just go with your lighter version of it, or your blender pen, and you just blend it right in. Alright, that one's a little bit too dark. Okay, this is my almost blender-based blue pen. It's really pale. Is that the aquamarine? Yeah, aquamarine. Okay, something like that. Might be a little bit too much blue. I might put in some gray into it, too. Kind of using a little bit more. I left too much white before, I think. Okay. Here's a blue-gray. Give it those shadows a little bit. I mean, just anything that kind of harmonizes in general with the color scheme will work. And then you just take a blender pen or a lighter version of that hue that you happen to be working with, and it'll just blend in beautifully, at least on glossy cardstock. Okay. All right. Let's give her a little bit of a, I don't know, tone, flesh-colored. I won't make her stand out too much because you're not going to use like skin color from, distance, but you can do it with coloring for sure. Or artwork. Okay. So anyways. Alright. I think I've been working off screen a little bit. If I was doing that, I apologize. I'll try to fast forward through that in the editing process. Sometimes I don't even rewatch these myself, though. Because I'm off on to the next scene or whatever I need to be doing here. Alright, this is a little bit of gray, kind of hitting it down here in the water. You might, if this is the first video you've seen, you might see that I really enjoy doing little details, like I'm adding in shadows here and there. I like to kind of refine my lighting when it comes to something like that. So I can kind of go like this type of thing, coming in from the left, like that. See, it's not going like that, right? It's kind of tapering it like that. All right. All right, I think I left my... I have my circular Corona maker. Like that. Okay, let's see. I have to find the middle of that. But first we'll start applying some different types of finishing touches on this, finishing marks. I'm not almost done, I have a little bit ways to go. But let's take a look at some specific little areas of application, tone. We have a white paint pen, we have our Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, We have our foreground imagery to add in here, our corona. These are the types of things that, I mean, I think this scene looks pretty good as is, but I feel it really comes alive, though, when we apply other types of media on top of here. We've only gone kind of darker, right? But I want to add light into dark, okay? So, this is a white paint pen. They're really inexpensive. You've heard of white gel pens, right? White paint pens are good as well. They're pretty, these things are really cheap too. As long as they work. A couple of these, they're like 50 cents each, so I think a couple of my pens are already running out of ink. Let's see. Okay, this one still has it in there. Okay, so those clouds that were facing the light, where I've left them lighter, okay, I'm just going to reiterate that lighting direction. Going to get this feeding right here. With a little bit more highlights. So you darken the shadow areas, but you lighten the areas with highlights, okay? Makes sense. Darken the shadows, lighten the highlights. Okay, let me explain that. Okay, so we add tone in these areas right here to make these areas darker in the shadows. Well, now with the highlights, I'm kind of adding, a few little dots on the tops of these little ridges where the clouds are light. Now, if the cloud's completely in darkness, I might not do that, okay? Although I added a couple right there. But just in general. Yeah, so it has to be kind of in a area where it's going to show up. It's not going to show up white on white. It's not going to show up out there. So you have to kind of do it where, the tones are transitioning a little bit, okay? So see that right there? It shows up right here. It really shows up right here, but maybe that's too much. So, I mean, you could put a couple dots on it, where there isn't very much lighting in there. So maybe there's just a little tiny bit of a highlight or something. And, I mean, highlights can show up on very dark objects too. Like here's a black pad right here, right? I mean, these are highlights right here, right? It's because it's reflecting the light. It's the composition of it, but here's this gray area right here on the white, and you can see the highlight right there. Okay, so it's like reflected light that you're adding in. But I'll show you the difference between this side. See those highlights like that, facing the light? And here it is without. I think it looks okay without, but look at that. Doesn't that look a little bit more dimensional? It'd be like if I didn't have any highlights on this bottle right here, or on my nails, you wouldn't have that, that little shiny bit right there. Okay, I need to trim my nails, but see, there's highlights on everything that we look at, okay? So it's not like this special effect, we're surrounded by it, reflected light. More reflections with the more kind of a reflective quality of the surface. Okay. The degree of lighting, how much lighting. All right, so how much do you add? You add more, closer to the light usually. Okay. And then you taper it off. You have less right here. In the darkness, there's 2 dots on that area without too much highlights on other areas, okay? Okay. Alright. I like this fun right here with the highlights. Okay. See those little areas down there? I'd add more, but I don't want to, you know, it takes so long. See these clouds right up here? Sometimes it's like one dot. So it's not like some kind of like large, kind of investment in time or anything like that. I mean, this whole area in the sky, and this is a big sky too. It didn't take too long for the payoff. Okay, now that being said, let's do some work on these waves down here. Remember how I was saying kind of I darkened in some a little bit too much. Let's go in here and just reclaim some of that lightness in here. I don't want to add too much because, if an area is too dark, it'll stand out too much. So if you ever add any on that you don't like to, just kind of wipe it off and it'll come right off glossy, no problem. You don't even have to wipe it off while it's wet. You can wipe it off after it dries. It's completely super forgiving process. That's one of the things about glossy cardstock too. It's more forgiving than matte. Not that I don't like matte. I do like matte. But as far as this goes, you can really just wipe things off because it's sealed paper. So there's a lot of leeway. Okay. So let's say if that's too much right here. Watch this. You just kind of wipe it right off. It didn't wipe out here. It's hard for me to hold and wipe it here. I'll just buff that right out. Okay. See? They were right there. Now they're just kind of wiped off. The gel pens wipe off a little bit easier, okay? This is acrylic paint here. Again, I have a special thing that I'll do for some of these waves here in the foreground. With the Dr. Martens. I think I do want to... Do I want to add those Dr. Martens splatter painting in here? Maybe I won't. It kind of gives a really good texture, but I'm not sure if I want that degree of it. Right down here, there isn't too much light, I guess. So maybe I can just do this by hand. Okay, so I'm making some of these areas kind of splash right in here. This is my danger zone. I bring in the camera so far, but sometimes I forget to pan out, zoom out, that I'm working off camera. Do you see that right down there? All those little splashes. Just coming off the crest of the wave. Now I can do this because I've left the wave white. Okay? I'm not going to do the same thing over here because that would stand out too much, right? So see this where you have it in the lightness, then you just kind of taper it off. Okay. highlights down here. Let's take a look. See, sometimes I do a little bit of a line, and a lot of times it's dots. There's a little bit of line right there. All right, so this is at arm's distance. I can see some of the highlights down here, you know, but just overall, doing little things like this makes a piece kind of shimmer in certain areas. Kind of brings out little highlights. It's like little pinholes of light within those spaces. I think it's fairly rich right here with the transitioning values, but you put that little sparkly little light in there, and it's a nice little effect, and it adds to the overall kind of character. I mean, there's pens like this. I'm not going to add too much of this. It would be effective. This is a glitter blue pen, right? This is a blue scene. This doesn't pick up on my camera very much at all, so I don't do too much of this in my videos, but I love the look. Okay, this little shimmer, it's one of those types of things that, you know, if you gave a piece to someone, or it could just be for yourself, you know, those types of things really add that extra little dimension, just like the white dots. Let me see if I can capture some of this in the light. Sometimes I can show you. Okay, now you see that right in there? That's the glitter pen. See that shimmer kind of right in here? Illuminate. So I mean, even if, I mean, it isn't so microscopic a view. I mean, if I'm going like this, you know, I can really see it in these areas firsthand. It's, like I said, it's hard to see on camera. So you can make this whole thing kind of shimmer like that. You can use stickles, or, you know what I mean? Little things like that here and there really make kind of that extra little cool touch in a piece. All right, let's see what we can do as far as special effects with pigment ink, okay? 100% cotton balls and white pigment ink here, okay? We'll see if I can add that corona up there too. Let me see, I just lost my circle template, wherever, here it is right here. Okay. All right, I need to hold this up to the light. Try to find my, trying to find the center of this right here. Okay, that's the center right there, that little dot that I drew. I'm holding this up to my studio lights, just so I can find the center of that moon. Okay, the center of the moon is right there. I'm going to see if I can put a little corona around this moon. I don't know if it's going to show up, though, because I didn't take that area around it very dark. Okay, so I'm just taking this white pigment ink. Okay, I don't want a real blobby application of it, of course. So I'll try to, this is a brand new cotton ball too, so I don't like the brand new ones. I like to use it a little bit and it starts working a little bit better because it starts getting a little bit more saturated with white pigment ink. By doing this circle up here, really bring some attention to that moon, which is kind of the focal point. You know, little figure, your eye probably goes to that figure, but kind of the landing point, you know, her hands are kind of going right to the that moon. The moon's a circle, so oftentimes that would be kind of the landing point visual for people looking at this piece. That's I'm speculating. Okay, well, not too bad. Let me put a little bit more. Let's see if we have a little bit of a moon ring. It's kind of subtle. You see it there? Okay. If we made a wider one out here, it would be much more apparent because it's over a darker area. I don't know. What would that be? That would be like a coffee can. I don't know. When's the last time anyone had a coffee can, though? Okay, so let's start applying some of this pigment ink to my clouds. The lighter areas of the clouds, see that softer kind of glow there? So you add, where do you add this? Well, you add it to the same places that you kind of did, where you added quite a few dots using, a gel pen or a paint pen. The lighter areas, okay? So we darken the darker areas of the scene with tone, and you lighten the lighter areas with white, okay? All right, let's go back up into this moon and kind of make it a little bit more soft and, I don't know, like moonlight should be, nice and kind of glowing, soft illumination. I might make some moon kind of crepuscular rays coming out of that moon just, for drama's sake. I think it'll be kind of cool. Alright, but let's add it to some of these clouds first. Oops, too much ink right there. Let's wipe that off. Blobbed on my cotton ball. Alright, so it's looking a little bit softer in these areas. I went for a really fast application of it too. I wasn't barely being careful at all. Okay, now see the figure right there? Let's put some of that lighting on her so that she is being affected by that light, okay? Coming from above, like that. So you see how you put some of that on her? Now look at that. She's kind of bathed in light, right? Hopefully. Okay, let's see. Let's get some lighting coming from that moon. I don't have to be kind of puzzled as far as a light source on this one because it's going to be right in the center of that moon right there, okay? So let's get some of these moon beams coming from that source right there, okay? 2 pieces of paper. Kind of emanating light right here, right? Kind of taper it a little bit too. So a little bit stronger, kind of around the source, and then as I move down here, see how dark that is right there? Kind of taper it off a little bit, just less of an application. Kind of spread it around, even it out a little bit. Watch this kind of transitioning beam like that. See that? It's a little bit stronger up here towards the source of light, and then it moves down, it's less. Okay, let's continue this through. Oops. I think I blotted some of that. I don't know if I have some on my finger there or something that got darker there. All right. Fixed. Oh, I know what I was doing. This was here, and all that ink was coming off this piece of paper here. All right, I need a clean piece of paper. Let's see. There. Yeah, this one's not good. Okay, you'd think I'd have a blank piece of copy paper around. I don't. I just ordered some. Okay, same place, same emanation point. Kind of change the width of your beams too. Just vary them a little bit. Otherwise, it's a little bit monotonous. Okay. You can get a little bit stronger out here. Okay. And you can even kind of vary it. You can go a little bit lighter, darker too. You know, you can say that the some of the clouds might have been in the way, so it kind of, the beam's a little bit stronger in certain areas. It doesn't even have to be like a strong to light. It could be strong light, or strong gone, like right in here, and then kind of appears again like that. See that right there? It looks a little bit more natural when you kind of vary things a touch. Okay. Okay, look at that strong one right there. Beam strength's different than this one over here, at least. Okay. Zoom in a little bit. It's adding quite a bit of power to the piece, I would say. My applicator here is getting better too. It's getting a little bit more smashed, so it's giving me a little bit of a smoother application of this pigment ink. As a matter of fact, let me come over here and use my used cotton ball a little bit more here, just so it's not so textured in application. Okay. You can even put a beam behind her too. see. You can have a beam go behind her and in front of her, or emanating out. So I can do this right here, and where I see her little figure right here, and I'll continue down this way. So it kind of sandwiches her within the beams, the multiple beams. So it kind of gives it a little bit more of a three-dimensional feel when you have something in front of as well as in back of a figure or object. Okay, so see it kind of goes in back of her right here. Okay. Maybe a real strong beam right there. Let's do this too. Let's do kind of a beam over beam, okay? Let's put a thinner beam within that thicker beam. So it's like dimensions, right? They're not all in the same plane. Okay, see that right there? So this is like kind of multi-dimensional, or there's just a stronger beam in front of the the lighter one, or paler one, weaker one, whatever. That stronger one next to that weaker one. Okay, I want to make the source of light slightly stronger, so I'll put more pigment ink around it. Okay, so it looks more luminous. Okay. She's really being illuminated now. Okay, all right. kind of assessing, you know, if I want more beams. It wouldn't be bad to have one kind of back there. I don't know, it might be enough too. I don't have one coming straight down. It would create too much of kind of a tension, I think. Although, I don't know, something's telling me to go a little bit further. Maybe one more here. I'll just go with a real narrow one. Maybe I'll keep it kind of weak. Okay. There we go. Just edit this one right here. See how it kind of just tapers off like that. All right. Now, there's a lot of bold things going on in here, so I'm going to try to make things nice and bold again with some additional imagery. And I need to go fairly, you know, big with this. So I'm going to go with something that has a lot of solid shape on it. This is the Twisting Leaves Large. And, I don't know, I kind of want to reiterate this idea of new beginnings, you know, so I'm thinking about growth. And that's what this kind of symbolizes here, this large, you know, plant life, right? You want to make sure that you're done kind of applying everything else that you're going to apply on there before you kind of start going on with the white pigment inks and the black pigment ink here, you know, in the form of these leaves. Because you don't want to be applying things over the top of that. This is a oil-based pigment ink. I think both of them are. And like water-based media doesn't stick to these real well. All right. You don't really see those boulders down there a little bit, or too much anymore, but they kind of provide a foundation for that. Could have left them out, but I don't know. The little bit of texture down there is kind of nice. Those plants really stick out there, don't they? Okay, now, do I add in any more? I might add a little bit of one. I'm not sure. Or a lot of one. I'm not sure. Let's see. I go like that. I don't know if I'll do it on both sides. Maybe a little bit on the other side. A leaf or two. It kind of directs the eye in towards the center a little bit more and kind of frames it off with a touch. Okay, we can come out over here. Okay. New beginnings. What it means, I don't know. I don't have a strong narrative kind of foundation, you know, or theory about this piece. It just seems like, I don't know, there was something coming up here and there's light coming from it, emanating from it. So to me, that seems like, you know, some kind of power, growth, etc. You know, what gives life, you know, water and light, right? You know, life as far as life on Earth goes. I think I'll save that. My cotton ball. I said go for true cotton. All right, let's take a look at this. All right. Swirling kind of, I don't know, what do you call it, like a vortex of clouds, you know, it's funnel type of thing. Hopefully the woman looks like she's kind of enveloped in light, and that's where the white pigment ink comes into play. Light beams are always kind of a dramatic and really fun type of process to add into a piece. They'd work for anything. You can do this whole background here, and instead of a moon or this little figure here, you put something like happy birthday. You know, and I mean, wouldn't that be really dramatic? Maybe have beams coming up that way too. I mean, that would be a really cool kind of, I don't know, like a word showcase, okay? And we have these plants right here in the foreground, really kind of framing the scene off, and everything's kind of all leading up this way, right? The emanating light and whatnot right to that area up there, so I don't know, kind of a fun little graphic and whatnot. I could put other things down here, but I don't want to kind of distract from that central focus right up there, so, you know, putting things like a sailboat or anything like that, it just didn't seem to make sense, you know, doing something like that, so fairly minimal around there. And again, this is one of those things, you know, I think I mentioned at the beginning, Stampscape stamps can also be just used as, you know, a showcase kind of foundation for stamps from other companies, other types of stamps, word stamps or whatever. You know, people wouldn't think of that, you know, just to stamping a whole scene out just to kind of put emphasis onto some sort of other type of visual. A visual as simple as like a word, like one word here would be powerful, you know, if we put that, you know, something up there like that, or a quote or whatever, you know. If I took this figure out of here and it said with sympathy or something like that, that, you know, this could take on a whole different kind of visual meaning to the piece. So that being said, this is really fun to work on. There's a lot of easy techniques. Now this scene took a while to do, just because it's so big, you know. But the foundation didn't take too long to do for all that coloring. I spent a lot of time on little different types of effects and whatnot, but they're all really fun to do, and you can really get lost in the process, and it's fun to just kind of lay down something like that, like a beam, and to sponge it in and take that off and watch it develop like that. One beam itself doesn't look good. It looks really weird and whatnot. You have to kind of put it in context, okay? A few little dots here and there. That looks kind of weird if you just put it in one part, so you put that whole texture around like that. Texture and dots, texture and white pigment ink, and then beams like that. And then everything kind of all comes together like that. There were little mishaps here and there, like a little streak down there. I got blotchy moon color up there, and then I blotched it again with, you know, I didn't realize tapping down like that I was applying that color onto my moon, but you just kind of tap it away with some additional pigment ink and it was fine. So a very forgiving process, and just a lot of fun to do, and to get lost in a piece. Okay, thanks again for tuning into this channel. Thanks as always for watching, and if you like this video, please hit the like, and if you feel inclined to subscribe.